Welcome to the Man Cave Podcast with Dan Casper.
First Friday night football in the books. Justus, let's do a little local sports roundup here. We had Hudson taking down Memorial. We had Regis.
Good game, though.
Yeah.
It was close.
Yeah. We had Regis taking down Turtle Lake.
And the power grid apparently up there for about a couple hours.
We had Stanley Boyd picking up a win over Colby, Mondovi picking up a win, Altoona over Fall Creek and such. So, we're going to miss some teams, obviously,
right,
because there's a lot
Spooner,
of them. Yep.
Yeah, there was a ton of games. So
back to that Memorial one, though, too. Even the final score probably didn't tell the whole story, would you say?
Yeah, I mean, they battled in that whole game, and, Hudson got a few touchdowns there at the end to kind of pull away a little bit, but that Memorial team under Westcott in their first game showed a lot of heart against a always tough Hudson team. So I think it's a good start to their season. I know you don't want the win, but
right.
Yeah, I mean, for them to go out that and now face another tough challenge with Chippewa Falls, it's coming off a win as well over Stevens Point too. So great that tradition can continue between the Cardinals and Old Abe's as they'll meet at Carson Park on Friday night. Yeah,
no doubt. And I know this was on Thursday a little bit here too, but what a heck of a game between North and Menominee on Thursday night too.
Yeah, North again, they got that win over them a couple of years ago, and then Menominee got revenge last year, so kind of the rubber matchup between the two. And last couple of years, it's been a really good battle between these two teams, and another one there at Carson with Menominee doing enough to hold on and get the win. Mike Sins wasn't. He'll go back and he'll find all those mistakes. He was talking about them post game, and I think that Menominee team will clean them up and they'll be fine. But I think North showing what they have, and I think it's for North and Memorial. I think we talked about this last week. I think them going to the Valley. I think they're gonna. It'll be a nice. Once they get all these tough non-conference games out of the way, which are not easy at all, I think that they can flourish in the Valley. I think it's going to be fun to watch them this whole year.
Yeah, absolutely. So they had a lead. Menominee had to have that comeback victory on Thursday. So maybe for some, if you're like, wow, North the last couple of years, they've been doing a really fantastic job.
Yeah, McGinnis has done a great job. Jarzinski kind of started it. McGinnis took over, and then they've just kind of kept growing every year.
Yep.
Numbers keep growing. Talent on the field keeps growing, and they just keep playing better and better. And they got another tough one. They'll go on the road at New Richmond this week. So that's we were talking about the Big Rivers is just stacked this year. New Richmond, another one of those tough teams that they'll have to face as was it 7-6 in Marshfield? Was that
Yep,
that was
7-6.
That was the old school game of the week there. That the 7-6 battle of the Tigers.
Yep.
So that's week one. I think you just kind of get. Sometimes working out the kinks,
right,
and then you kind of start feeling it maybe week two and get more into a flow.
Right, exactly. So, you mentioned week two, but really quick, couple other games that maybe I know Brandon talked a lot about Stanley Boyd and Kobe leading up to it, kind of renewing that rivalry there, and you got a Stanley Boyd team. I think you even mentioned it a little bit last week too. A lot of talent on that team and looking to make a run.
Yeah, a lot of that offensive talent. They scored 44 points this last week. They were scoring 40 points a lot last year. As long as they can get the defense together, they're going to be a tough team to beat. And they saw that against Colby. I mean, they were up 40. I think it was like 44-12 at one point, or 44-10. So they did a great job there. They'll face a tough test with Cadott this week. Cadott is kind of one of those teams that has been flying under the radar last few years. They got a new coach this year, but they played very, very well against Augusta in week one. So I think that'll be a fun. That's all. It's kind of nice for Stanley Boyd. You go one way to Colby, now you go the other way to Cadott for your non-conference games, and then you'll start conference play up here soon too. So I think that'll be a fun battle to watch this week.
I think you mentioned them a little bit last week too. Mondovi, is there a lot of high expectations for Mondovi this year? I thought I saw them I think it might have been like a Wisp Sports poll. For small schools listed like as a top 10 team over there.
I think so. I mean, they lost a lot of good players, but they kept a lot of good players on that team and came out and got the win against GET in week one. And then this week they will I had it up here. Now I forgot it because I couldn't come off the top of my Osceola. Osceola usually puts on a pretty good team on the field there too, so they'll host them in a non-conference game this week. So I think Mondovi Lowscheider has that team every year. Just the energy comes from him and just goes out to the players as well. So I think they're gonna be a tough team this whole year. I mean, we were talking about the Clover Belt same way with kind of like the Big Rivers. Is like the Clover Belt's so stacked this year. Elk Mountain got a big win over Spooner. Regis over Turtle Lake. So I mean, Durand just lost to Spring Valley, and Spring Valley is a tough team as well. So it's going to be tough in the Clover Belt to see who kind of claws their way to the top in that conference.
What we had Altoona defeating Fall Creek this past weekend. What's kind of like the outlook for Altoona this year? Do you think, looking at them?
They were very athletic. I saw that school. I mean, if you just look at all their sports, it's been very athletic the last few years, and I think if they can keep what they did, defensively they were playing really tough. I was there for the first half. Fall Creek kind of made a run in the second half, but then Altoona had a big play at the end, like a 95-yard touchdown to get the victory. So the athletes are there.
Yeah.
And if they can keep together, what they did, and they're going to go play Black River Falls this week, I think the potential is there. You got to kind of see a couple more weeks of it, but the potential's there. And I mean, that's a rivalry game kind of started off, too, with Fall Creek. And so you knew Fall Creek wasn't going to roll over in the second half, and they battled. And that's good for Fall Creek because it was a tough first half for them, but to come back and at least really make it a game. I mean, it was down to the wire there.
Yep.
That bodes well for them as they'll go take on Augusta this week.
Right. New head coach with Marcus over there at Fall Creek, too.
Yes.
So, long-time assistant, though. So it's not
he's not a stranger to that program. So they had a lot of energy, and I think they just made a few mistakes in the first half that ended up costing them in the second half and just not being able to get a margin for victory there.
Right. 8-man starts this week, too, heading into Labor Day. So that's why, I try to catch myself when we say football season started last week. 11-man football.
Right.
We got 8-man football now starting up this week, which, I mean, we know this area is full of really, really good teams all across the board, whether it's McDonald, Thorpe, Gilman, those teams all
around here. We've had somebody basically playing in the championship game since they started it. So, yeah, I think it's going to be fun again to see. Thorpe lost a ton of talent, but, you have that tradition built up there. And, these teams, I mean, we're probably getting on to almost a decade now of having 8-man be just as big as it is, and it just keeps growing. So McDonald, I mean, the athletes they throw out there, and just and it's fun. It's fun to watch. But the thing is, you'll get a lot of high scoring games, but now we're starting to see where it's getting a lot more parity matching up with these teams, and it's you don't once you start watching, you don't even know the field's a little bit, narrower and stuff like that. These guys, it is fun to watch. So, yeah, get out there, too, and support those 8-man teams because it's a way to keep those football teams going for a lot of those cities. So.
Exactly. Yep. Well said. And I know other sports are going to be in action, too, this week. I know we got, tennis coming up this weekend, even though it is Labor Day weekend, coming
golf
up
for
here.
The last couple of weeks.
Yep.
Soccer should be starting up because they had practice start last week. Cross country.
I think even, is it the big volleyball one coming up this weekend in Menominee?
They'll start getting the sprawls going on. So, yeah, we're really, especially as we get closer to September, swimming's been going on, too, as well.
Right.
So they probably wish they were outside.
A little bit, right? Yeah, exactly. Because I think, is it the Stout sprawl for volleyball where a lot of our teams are going over there this weekend, too? So,
that's
Stout,
one of the bigger ones. Probably the biggest one in the area.
So kind of our first probably glimpse of what some of these teams will look like because we got a lot of good volleyball teams.
Yes, we do.
High school.
So yeah, that'll be a good chance and again just for those teams to get out there on the court and get some in-game experience.
I know Blue Golds football wise. I know WIAC. They had the prediction polls coming out and Stout and the Blue Golds were towards the bottom there. But I mean, year 2 with Coach Erickson, we talked a little bit about it last week and such. Was it still fair to say it's a little bit of an unknown what to really expect? I always struggle a little bit with preseason polls for college football and such, so I don't know how much I put into that. But I'm intrigued with year 2.
I am too, and I mean, it was a 40% change in the roster. I mean, that's a lot of players coming in. A new system that they're now, the guys who were there are, having a year under your belt, and Erickson just knowing these players a little bit more.
Right.
I am too. I think, for both them and Stout, I think they'll have to crawl.
Right.
But I think once they're going to scrap. Both those teams are going to scrap. I don't see them both being near the bottom by the end of the year.
Because Stout likes to put up a bunch of points, don't they?
They do, and they usually have an offense that can go with the best of them. So again, I don't see. I know the competition's tough because all these other, like River Falls and La Crosse have really grown.
Yep.
In the last few years, Stevens Point's, has had a new tutelage and has new coaches as well, and so I mean. I really think both of those teams are going to crawl their way towards the middle, and hopefully, it'd be fun to see one of them make the run towards the top.
Right. Yep. And I know, soccer's also going on for Blue Golds. The women's team's picked second in the WIAC preseason poll, too. So Coach Yengo and his crew, a little high expectations for this upcoming season.
Got a win in friendly over Viterbo last week, and as the men's team got a win as well. And both those programs. I mean, the men's program's year 4, I think now.
Yeah, still
point.
Kind of young,
but
right?
Man,
still new.
What they've already done in 4 years has been amazing, and what Sean Yengo has done with that women's program from year in and year out. They're always battling for a top spot there. So both those teams, I would. If they're not battling for championships or making the playoffs, I'll be surprised because they're both really, really good.
And then you mentioned championships volleyball. I know last year a lot of younger players on that roster. So now we're into this season. High expectations again, would you say? I mean, when you win a national championship just a few years ago, that bar is always going to be pretty high, right?
And that's, it's always been a great recruiting tool. And they were really young after having so much experience for so many years on that team. I think, Kim Woody's teams usually don't stay down for very long.
Right.
They'll be back up towards the top. And I think this year, after getting that experience last year, hopefully we're starting to see the build of another championship team.
Exactly. So, man, it's really starting to kick into gear now.
It is. It really is.
Holy moly. So, there's your local sports roundup with our good buddy, Mr. Justus Cleveland.